suddenly the world reads about Petra. The entrance into Petra is this magnificent carved structure about 140 feet high. And it was carved, it was hewn directly out of the rock.
Scientists finally solved how Petra was carved, and the answer is terrifying, because the method they identified shouldn't have been humanly possible. In 2025, a research team led by Dr. Chen from MIT's Archaeological Engineering Lab completed the most comprehensive scan ever conducted on Petra's Treasury facade. They mapped every surface to sub-millimeter precision. They analyzed toolmarks under electron microscopy. They measured surface finishes that shouldn't exist on 2,000-year-old stonework. What they found broke every assumption about ancient construction. The Nabateans achieved precision comparable to modern machine-polished granite, with bronze chisels and sand. They carved mathematical curves accurate to within millimeters across 40-meter cliff faces, without laser levels or surveying equipment. And here's the detail that made Dr. Chen's hands shake. The oldest facades showed the highest quality. Later, work got worse, not better. That's not how humans develop. Skills. That's not how any civilization learns. Something else was happening at Petra. The impossible monument. The treasury stands 40 meters tall in a hidden canyon in southern Jordan, carved entirely from living rock. No assembled blocks, no mortar. Every column, every pediment, every sculpture cut from one continuous cliff face. Here's the catch. This is subtractive architecture. One wrong chisel strike and you've permanently removed stone that cannot be replaced. The margin for error across a 40-meter facade is essentially zero. And the Nabateans did this with copper tools barely harder than the sandstone they were cutting. Dr. James Morrison, a structural engineer from Cambridge who joined the 2025 survey team, put it bluntly when he saw the measurements. We can't do this today. Not with hand tools, not with this precision. The math doesn't work. To create the treasury's facade, workers removed approximately 8,000 cubic meters of solid sandstone, roughly 20,000 tons of rock. They carved it from the top down, which means they needed some way to work 40 meters up on a vertical cliff face while removing debris, maintaining tool access, and achieving millimeter accuracy across the entire surface. The conventional explanation has always been patience, decades of careful hand grinding with sand abrasives, methodical chisel work, slow, steady progress. The 2025 data demolished that explanation. Zero tolerance. Before we go further, understand what subtractive sculpture at this scale actually means. Building with stone blocks is forgiving. Cut a block wrong, replace it. Miscalculate a joint, adjust the next piece. The assembled structure can absorb errors because each component is separate. Carving from living rock offers no such mercy. Every chisel strike removes material permanently. Cut too deep into a column, and you've either ruined the column or created an asymmetry you'll spend weeks trying to disguise. Miscalculate the angle of a pediment early in the work, and the error compounds across every subsequent measurement. The treasury isn't 12 meters of carved column. It's 12 meters of zero-tolerance precision, where the workers had one chance to get every cut exactly right. From the top down, meaning they couldn't even see most of their work from a normal viewing angle until they were nearly finished. Dr. Morrison ran simulations. If a carving team made even small errors every 100 chisel strokes, errors well within human normal, the cumulative deviation across the treasury's facade would produce visible asymmetries. The treasury shows no such deviation. Whatever method they used either prevented errors or corrected them in ways we can't identify. The scanning results. The laser scanning mapped the entire treasury to sub-millimeter precision, over 100 million data points, creating a complete digital model. And the findings don't match any known ancient stonework technique. Surface consistency across hundreds of square meters rarely varies more than 2 to 3 millimeters from ideal geometric planes. For hand-carved work on a vertical cliff face, that's not impressive. That's inexplicable. But here's the deal. The 6 Corinthian columns are where things get genuinely strange. Each stands 12 meters tall with a base diameter of 1.2 meters. They feature entasis, a subtle convex curve where the column bulges slightly at 1/3 height, to counteract optical illusions that make straight columns appear to bow inward. Entasis requires precise mathematical calculation and symmetric execution on all four sides simultaneously. Modern stone carvers say achieving this in carved stone, as opposed to turned on a lathe, demands continuous measurement at multiple points along the entire height. The Nabatean columns show entasis executed within millimeters across all 6 columns, on a cliff face, with bronze tools, without laser levels. Dr. Chen's team measured it 7 times. The precision held. Surfaces that shouldn't exist. The surface finish is where the mystery deepens into something that shouldn't exist. Atomic force microscopy revealed surface roughness values, called RA measurements, in the 1 to 5 micrometer range on the smoothest sections. That's comparable to fine-ground modern stonework, produced with diamond abrasives and power tools. To achieve this by hand, you'd need extensive grinding with progressively finer abrasives. Repeated cycles of grinding, cleaning, inspection, finer grinding. The time investment for small areas would be enormous. Petra shows this finish across hundreds of square meters. And get this, grinding with abrasives leaves characteristic microscopic scratches, random directional marks from particles dragged across the surface. The 2025 microscopy found these expected patterns in some areas, but other sections showed something else entirely. Surfaces too smooth for grinding marks, unusual uniformity, no directional scratches at all, as if the finishing technique either removed all evidence of tool work or used methods that don't leave the marks we'd expect from any known ancient process. Dr. Morrison spent 3 days examining the anomalous surfaces. His conclusion? Either they had finishing techniques we haven't identified, or we're missing something fundamental about their capabilities. It's not that simple, though. The toolmark mystery. The toolmark analysis created more questions than answers. Different facades and different areas of the same facade show distinctly different mark patterns. Some surfaces have expected percussion marks consistent with bronze chisels. Others show linear marks too uniform for freehand work, more like guided cutting than hand chiseling. Some finished surfaces show almost no marks at all. The research team documented everything, cross-referenced tool patterns from Egyptian, Greek, and Roman sites. Dr. Morrison created a database of over 800 toolmark samples from ancient sites across the Mediterranean, Bronze Age, Egypt, Classical Greece, Roman quarries, Persian stonework. Every culture has signatures, he explained. Tool angles, strike patterns, finishing sequences. You can usually identify the tradition from surface marks alone. Petra didn't match any of them. Some marks resembled Egyptian techniques, others looked vaguely Greek, but the combination, and especially the anomalous smooth sections, fit no established pattern. It's like finding a language that borrows words from everywhere, but follows grammar rules no one else uses, Morrison said. The vocabulary is familiar, the structure is not. Then they looked at the scaffolding evidence, or rather, the lack of it. To carve from the top down, required to avoid damaging completed work below, you need stable access to the entire 40-meter height. That means substantial scaffolding, supporting dozens of workers, tools, and removed debris. Petra's facades show minimal attachment points, a few small holes that might have held wooden beams, but not the regular arrays of post holes, beam sockets, and anchor points you'd expect for scaffolding systems at this scale. Dr. Elena Vasquez, an archaeological engineer from Stanford, calculated the minimum scaffolding requirements for the Treasury. Her models showed the infrastructure should have left extensive evidence that isn't there. Either they use support systems we don't understand, she said, or this weathered away completely while preserving micro-level surface details. Neither option makes sense. If you're finding this investigation as unsettling as the research team did, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We're just getting to the part that made Dr. Chen question everything she thought she knew about ancient construction. Engineering beyond tools. The water management systems throughout Petra provided the first hint that something unusual was happening with Nabatean engineering. The city features elaborate channels, cisterns and pipe systems maintaining precise gradients, typically 0.5 to 3%, over distances up to 500 meters. Too shallow and water stagnates. Too steep and hydraulic erosion destroys the channels. These systems work. After 2,000 years, many still function. That requires sophisticated surveying and geometric calculation. Basically, the Nabateans understood precision engineering. They had the mathematical capability. What they shouldn't have had were tools precise enough to execute that knowledge at architectural scale on vertical cliff faces. The gap between capability and tools is where this mystery lives. The measurement problem. The measurement challenge alone should have been impossible. Creating architectural elements like columns, pediments, and decorative details requires maintaining proportions accurately across the entire facade. The treasury shows remarkable symmetry. 6 columns essentially identical within millimeters, classical proportions maintained across 40 meters of vertical rock face. Dr. Vasquez ran the numbers on dimensional consistency. Without modern surveying equipment, optical levels, laser guides, precision instruments, maintaining this accuracy requires some systematic method of marking and checking measurements during carving. But here's the problem. How do you maintain accuracy while progressively removing thousands of tons of stone? Any small error in depth or angle accumulates as carving progresses. A mistake made in the first month of work compounds into proportional disaster by the final year. The team proposed templates, full-scale drawings transferred to the rock surface, combined with measurements using ropes, plumb lines, and water levels. That could work in theory, Dr. Morrison admitted, but you still need to continuously verify accuracy while working 40 meters up. Limited visual comparison between distant elements, working on whatever scaffolding system they had, which we can't identify. The error tolerance is essentially zero. One miscalculation early in the process ruins proportions that cannot be corrected. The stone is already gone. And get this, the sandstone varies in hardness across different areas of the cliff. Some sections cut easily. Others contain mineral bands that resist tools and alter chisel behavior. Achieving consistent surface finish across variable stone properties requires adaptive skill, real-time assessment and adjustment that takes decades to develop. That expertise is notoriously difficult to transmit through instruction. It's the kind of knowledge that lives in hands, not manuals. The impossible pattern. Now, here's the finding that changes everything. Dr. Chen's team conducted a systematic quality analysis across all of Petra's facades. Surface finish, dimensional accuracy, decorative complexity. They expected to find what every civilization shows. Rough early work, improving through accumulated experience. The data showed the opposite. The oldest facades, including the treasury, dated to the 1st century BCE, displayed the highest quality in virtually every parameter, the smoothest surfaces, the most precise architecture, the most sophisticated details. Later, facades from the 1st century CE showed good but measurably declining quality. The latest facades, from the 2nd century CE and beyond, were noticeably cruder, rougher surfaces, less precise proportions, simpler details. Dr. Chen stared at the comparison charts for a long time before speaking. This is backwards. Skills improve through practice. Each generation builds on previous knowledge. But Petra shows peak capability at the beginning, then decline. Her colleague, Dr. Morrison, pulled up the statistical analysis. It's not a measurement error. We ran this 17 different ways. The pattern holds. The implications are disturbing. Either the earliest facades were carved by master craftsmen, possibly foreign specialists, whose techniques weren't transmitted to later generations, or the Nabateans inherited methods from unknown predecessors that they could replicate initially, but gradually lost the ability to execute. Or the oldest structures predate the Nabatean period entirely. None of these explanations fit conventional archaeological models. Lost knowledge. The lost knowledge theory gained traction within the team, but raised its own problems. Perhaps the Nabateans developed proprietary techniques they deliberately kept secret. Trade knowledge transmitted only within specific families or guilds, skills that died when those lineages ended. This would explain both the high early quality and the subsequent decline. If knowledge was held by specific masters rather than widely distributed, the death or departure of key individuals could cause rapid capability loss. But here's the catch. Trade secrets are refined over generations. They start crude and improve through accumulated experience. You don't begin with mastery. Petra shows the opposite. Pattern. Peak capability first. Decline afterward. As if the founders already possessed perfected techniques. then gradually lost them. "That's not how craft knowledge works," Dr. Chen said. "That's not how any knowledge works, unless you didn't develop it yourself." The implication hung in the air unspoken: inheritance from unknown predecessors. The unfinished evidence. The unfinished facades scattered throughout Petra became critical evidence once the team understood what they were looking for. Several structures were abandoned at various stages, some barely started, others partially carved, others nearly complete but lacking final surface work. Dr. Vasquez documented an abandoned tomb on Petra's outskirts. The columns were roughed out but unfinished. No surface polish, no final details. Here's what stopped her cold. The unfinished columns showed better proportions, more accurate vertical alignment, and more precise initial carving than several fully completed tombs elsewhere in the city. "This wasn't about finishing work," she said. "The quality difference is in the fundamental carving capability. Whoever started this tomb was more skilled than whoever finished others." The team photographed everything, measured the angles, compared the proportions. Dr. Chen found 3 more examples: an abandoned chamber with preliminary cuts more precise than completed tombs nearby, a half-carved column showing mathematical accuracy that later, finished columns didn't achieve, a facade blocked out with proportions that subsequent generations apparently couldn't maintain during final execution. "It's like finding a rough draft that's better than the published version," Morrison said. "The skill was there at the beginning, then it faded." The pattern held across 23 separate comparisons. Earlier work, higher precision; later work, declining quality. The evidence pointed to different craftsmen with dramatically different skill levels, or different time periods with capabilities that didn't transfer. Ruling out alternatives, the team spent 6 weeks trying to find alternative explanations. Maybe the earliest facades got more resources, more time, better workers assigned to prestige projects, while lesser craftsmen handled routine tombs. The evidence didn't support it. Resource allocation might explain quality differences between contemporary structures. It doesn't explain a civilization getting worse at its signature craft over 2 centuries of continuous practice. Maybe weathering affected older facades differently, making them appear more precise through some erosion process that smoothed imperfections. Dr. Chen tested this by examining protected interior surfaces that hadn't weathered. Same pattern. The oldest interiors showed the highest precision. Maybe dating was wrong. Maybe the oldest facades were actually later work by different craftsmen. The team brought in 3 independent dating specialists: stylistic analysis, contextual, archaeology, and carbon dating of organic materials found in associated deposits all confirmed the original chronology. The earliest work was the best work. There was no explaining it away. No known source. The regional context should have provided answers. It didn't. The Nabateans were traders positioned at the crossroads of multiple civilizations. They interacted regularly with Greeks, Romans, and Egyptians, all cultures with sophisticated stonework traditions. The influences are visible in Petra's eclectic architecture, but careful comparison shows none of these cultures produced work with Petra's specific combination of characteristics. Egyptian rock-cut temples like Abu Simbel are impressive at scale, but show different surface qualities and toolmark patterns. Lycian tombs in Turkey share stylistic elements, but are smaller with different surface treatment. Indian rock-cut architecture at Ajanta and Ellora is magnificent, but represents entirely different techniques. Dr. Morrison contacted specialists in each tradition, sent photographs, shared surface data, asked if anyone recognized the methods. No one did. "We're looking at something unique," he concluded. "Not borrowed, not adapted. Something that appears here and nowhere else we've documented." Acoustic engineering. The acoustic properties added another dimension the team hadn't anticipated. The treasury's interior and several tomb chambers showed sound characteristics suggesting deliberate design, reverberation patterns that would amplify voices and create impressive acoustic phenomena during ceremonies. Researchers debate whether this was intentional engineering or fortunate accident, but the consistency across multiple structures suggests at minimum an awareness of how carved space affects sound, and possibly deliberate manipulation of geometry for acoustic effect. The Nabateans weren't just removing rock, they were shaping space itself. and the precision required for intentional acoustics would explain some of the otherwise excessive surface finish quality. Chemical mysteries. The chemical analysis complicated matters further. Some of Petra's smoothest surfaces show trace mineral deposits that don't match mechanical grinding with sand. These suggest either chemical treatment, some polishing compound or finishing agent, or natural mineralization that occurred after carving. If chemical treatment was used, it represents yet another unidentified technique. The Nabateans left no written descriptions of their methods. Everything we know comes from physical evidence alone. Dr. Vasquez examined the mineral deposits under electron microscopy. The crystalline structure suggested deliberate application rather than natural weathering. "Someone put this here," she said. "We just don't know what it is or how they made it." Survival as evidence. The preservation itself became evidence. Petra was abandoned around the 7th century CE and remained unknown to the Western world until 1812. For over 1,000 years, the facade stood exposed to wind erosion, temperature extremes, and flash floods through the canyon system. Yet the finest surfaces retain their precision. Highly polished surfaces resist weathering better than rough ones. Fewer attack points for wind-driven particles and water infiltration. The survival quality suggests original finishes higher than functional completion required. Someone polished these surfaces to a standard that exceeded practical necessity. The question was why? Unless the polish serves some purpose we don't understand. The method is not humanly possible. What does all this mean? Petra exists as undeniable physical evidence. Hundreds of facades carved from solid cliff faces. The treasury featuring 40-meter architectural elements with mathematical entices curves. Surfaces achieving near polish across hundreds of square meters. Over 8,000 cubic meters of stone removed through subtractive carving where every mistake is permanent. The 2025 analysis documented tool marks inconsistent with known techniques. Surface finishes exceeding hand grinding capabilities. Quality declining over time rather than improving. Engineering precision achieved without adequate evidence of scaffolding or measurement systems. Modern stonemasons using period-appropriate tools cannot replicate Petra's finest work within reasonable time frames. The team tried. They brought in master craftsmen from 3 continents, gave them bronze chisels and sand, asked them to match even small sections of the treasury's surface quality. After 6 months of attempts, the best result still showed visible tool marks where Petra's original surfaces show none. Dr. Chen's final report contained a sentence that circulated through archaeological departments worldwide. The methods used at Petra appear to exceed what should have been humanly possible with documented Bronze Age technology. Scientists finally solved how Petra was carved. The answer is that the techniques the Nabateans used, or inherited, or lost, remain beyond our ability to identify or replicate. The method is not humanly possible. And yet the evidence stands 40 meters tall in the Jordanian desert, carved from living rock, waiting for someone to explain how. What do you think actually happened at Petra? Did the Nabateans inherit knowledge from a lost civilization? Did foreign masters take their secrets to the grave? Or is there something about ancient human capability we've fundamentally misunderstood? Drop your theory in the comments. I read every single one. And if this mystery grabbed you the way it grabbed Dr. Chen's research team, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We're investigating the sites that don't fit the textbooks, the places where the evidence challenges everything we thought we knew. Next week, the construction technique at Pumapunku that modern engineers say is physically impossible to replicate. See you there.